This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three. Yes! She is gone! I don't believe what I just saw.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles?
Yes! You may fire when ready.
What?
Good evening, Cubs and Cardinals fans. It's Thursday, June 2nd, and this is the Team of Rivals podcast, proud members of the Gateway City Sports Network, where you can find a couple of podcasts and some decent blog content. You can follow us online at teamofrivalspodcast.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Rumble at Team of Rivals Podcast, and we're on Twitter and Getter at Team of Rivals Pod. I really think we need to standardize that. What do you think? Go ahead, leave a comment. For those of you watching us live, hit the like and subscribe buttons and be sure to ring that bell on YouTube and Rumble so that you receive notifications. You're not watching us live. If you're watching this after the fact, so you receive notifications anytime we post the content. Look, I'm obviously thrown because the Cubs are worse than the Pirates right now. 10 games back, 8 games behind the Cardinals as they start a 5-game set at Wrigley. Somehow the Pirates are only 5 games under 500. The Cubs, meanwhile, have managed to be 8 games under 500 despite, and I really wish that Elliott was here tonight, but he's not, because Christopher Morel has been a revelation, and I know that Ron's not going to want to talk about it because all it does is feed the minor league stat heads who get all excited about prospects. But he has lit a fire under the Cubs, and yet they still suck. So joining me tonight for tonight's show, co-founder of the Team of Rivals and number 104 in the 2021 edition of the Top Cards on Twitter, Ron Nuttall, and definitely not here, occasionally a guest host, Elliott Dewey. His brother's in town. He wouldn't come on the show. He wouldn't bring his brother on the show. He's slacking. Ron, we got 5 games, and right now the Cubs are up 5-3 in the bottom of the 6th. How you feeling, buddy?
I've had it on, and coming off the heels of a. Before I even get to that, Pete, I don't even care about that because one of the best things I heard this weekend, on our holiday, a day where we remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice.
Wait, let me guess.
He did it again. Pete.
The gold chair, which will sit vacant here at Citizens Bank Park, honoring those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Castellanos rips one to deep left field. It is gone!
Unbelievable.
You would think that he's got an IFB when he goes to the plate so that he can hear what the announcers are talking about.
Or they're planning this out during his at-bats. Right, like they're having these memoriams, these serious, somber conversations, or these topics that come up, and lo and behold, that guy. You know
that Tom Brenneman planned to stick his foot in his mouth.
Well, no, that was unplanned, Pete. I think those that have come after are a conspiracy, and they're planning this shit when that guy's at bat. But he has no regard.
He doesn't.
He doesn't care.
So what you're saying is that Nick Castellanos has no fucks to give.
It appears he doesn't, and I guess I can't blame him. The way the world's going, I can't blame him. So, I don't either. Who does?
I don't have an answer for that one. I don't know who does.
But to answer your question, I was a 5-game set. I was a little surprised, right? I was looking at the schedule at glance. I'm like, 4-game series. That happens once or twice a year between the teams. But, it's a 5-game set because season was pushed back, and these guys were supposed to play earlier in the year. The Cardinals are coming off the heel of a sweep against the Padres, which are a pretty talented team. Look up and down the roster, minus Robinson Cano, who's about to get released. But anyway, it is the Padres. They are formidable. And I felt good about it until I looked up and saw that the Pirates had swept the Dodgers. And then I'm thinking, for all of you who want to shorten the season, this is why you play 162 games. Because stuff like this happens. We've said it for years. The worst teams in baseball will play a good set against a really good team. They catch them at a bad time, and that's just the way it goes. It's the way baseball goes. So, Pete...
what you're saying is you would not be the least bit surprised if the Cubs sweep this 5-game series.
I think it's going to be extremely hard to sweep a 5-game series, but I would not be at all surprised if they take 3 out of 5.
Well, I'm hoping they win tomorrow because I'm going to be there. Stroman versus Michaelis.
Ooh.
I could not have intentionally picked a better game.
That will be the best game you'll see as far as pitchers go, right?
Right. Yeah, the best matchup.
The best matchup, right. I got to talk about something.
If you're a big fan of the rivalry, like we claim to be, I mean, you should love this, right? Because you're getting to see the whole rotation. Now, it's not exactly the way you want to see it because there is a doubleheader on Saturday.
Yeah.
But still, a 5-game set, you get to see the full rotations. Although I doubt you will. I would imagine that the Cardinals are going to do the same thing that the Cubs will do. They're likely not going to alter their rotation for one of Saturday's games. I'm sure that they're going to bring somebody up from AAA to get a spot start.
Probably. It's going to happen. When you get a compressed schedule like this in a short period of time, that's typical, right? I think sometimes they even allow teams to expand a bit, but that might not be the case here, but the rules are a little lax. No, it is the case. With doubleheaders, anytime there's a doubleheader, they're allowed to bring up that 27th man.
Yeah. I don't think it has to be a pitcher, but most of the time it is. And you get to have him up for that day, and he doesn't have to be. I don't think he's got to be on the 40-man. And he doesn't have to be on the active roster.
Well, not surprising in this day and age. I still hate the extra inning runner on second. I mean, it just... we've had a few of those lately. I don't know about you, but the Cardinals have. And, while they pulled it out last night, I just... To me, that... I don't know. Many fans have watched this game for years, that we just why start off with an advantage at the beginning of an inning? I just don't I get it, Pete. I get the thought behind why it should be done, but then I see it happen. I'm like, I wish it wasn't done.
I tell you, I'm fine with it. And we've discussed it before. I'm fine with it if you can't get things sorted out at the end of the 11th inning. Then I'm okay with it, right? But why can't we play 2 extra innings of normal baseball before we have to change everything?
Well, you're right, because it feels like going directly to the shootout rather than overtime.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm making a hockey reference for those of you who don't want to hear about it. I'm still in mourning.
And for those of you who just came off the big Champions League game there, in soccer, they don't go to penalty kicks right away. They do play extra time, right? After 90 minutes, if the game's tied, they still will play another 30 minutes before they'll finally go to pens.
And there'll be 1, maybe 2 goals scored the whole hour and a half, which is why soccer is
until
very popular.
They get to penalty kicks, and then it's just incessant. It's whichever goalie can get right.
Which is why soccer is insanely popular in the short attention span of the country we live in.
Exactly.
So, an interesting thing, actually a bunch surrounding baseball, but I think outside of the Castellanos deciding to homer for no reason, Tommy Pham came up in a
Tommy Pham.
Tommy Pham. When he was a Cardinal, you think of those dark years in 2018, 2017, whatever. He was the one player amongst a team of just seemed aloof, full of aloof superiority. Tommy Pham was the one guy who had a chip on his shoulder. The one guy had a little bit of fire, and he was when he was there, I kind of liked that because we didn't have an ounce of that, not even from the manager. And
it also gave you a nice a nice built-in competition when the Cubs and the Cardinals would face off, because the question was, who's going to lose his shit first, Tommy Pham or Wilson Contreras? And that's a really close race.
It's an extremely close race. I actually think if you pitted all these guys against each other throughout history that we've known hotheads, I think Tommy Pham might actually have the trophy. And I'm saying this even over Carlos Zambrano, Pete.
And even over Lou Piniella? I mean, Lou
probably
Lou
not.
Takes the cake.
That would be a stretch to say he was worse than
Earl
Lou.
Weaver. Oh, but the fact that we're talking about Tommy Pham in such esteemed company really says something for his temper and his inability to control it.
That dude was that dude is just mad at the sun for coming up. Like, he's got, I don't know if that's his fuel to compete, but he has to be mad and have something. But the fact, Pete, with this with this one, something that happened in the offseason over like a text chain, right? And he sat on it for months until they played each other, and then decided, here's how I'm going to address this. I'm going to go slap the shit out of Jock Peterson, Will Smith style. This is why, yes, I think your point is taken. Like, Lou Piniella can turn on you on a dime like a pit bull. But Tommy Pham has to take the title for diabolical. Like, if he could sit on this for months and do it, like, Lou Piniella might have jumped on a plane and done it immediately. Tommy Pham waited and plotted and picked his time.
And the fact that he also managed to rope in Mike Trout in this whole thing too.
He was taking everybody out by the knees left and right. Like, he was coming from the top rope, and I'm not really sure that's successful against Mike Trout. If I had to put these guys in a steel cage or the octagon, Mike Trout is, like, I don't know if you people know this, like, just watching him on highlights or TV, that dude is like a tree trunk. And I have my money on Mike Trout. I know he's going to be harder to piss off. He'll take longer to deliver the death blow, but he'll eventually do it because he'll just get annoyed. I got my money on Trout. Like, I don't think Tommy Pham's walking up to Mike Trout and slapping him. Jock Peterson with frosted tip hair, yeah, you're going to slap that guy. You're not going to slap Mike Trout. If he slaps you back, you're going to be cold-cocked.
Well, yeah, I mean, you take a look at Jock Peterson, right? He's wearing his pearls. He's got his tips frosted. Of course you're going to slap him.
He just won a World Series. Like, his competitive edge is a little more, let's say the edge is taken off of that a little bit more, right? You think that, right? We've all seen the Hangover from that effect. So, fuck with Mike Trout, who is the best player on the planet, and the team around him sucks, except for one Japanese phenom. They haven't won shit since he's been there. Yeah, go ahead and slap that guy.
Well, and maybe that's why Tommy Pham felt so comfortable drawing him in, because he sees in Mike Trout a kindred spirit.
Yeah, I think is.
He's been on a bunch of shitty teams that haven't won shit.
I think he is, but I think
he thinks he's the best player in the game.
If you find that one secret thing that'll piss him off and you say it, I think you're done.
Yeah.
So anyway,
don't disagree.
Anyway, back to our teams, but I had to bring that up, man, because Tommy Pham really is. He's an ass. He just is.
Yes.
I'm sorry, your history, your backstory, I get it, but man, these are your baseball brethren, and that's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine sitting on all that anger, and like, when I see that MFer, I'm going to slap him upside the head. That's how I'm going to deal with this.
I agree. I think that's the unbelievable thing, is sitting on that anger, right? This was not last week. This was last year.
The only excuse I can make for him, Pete, is he realized that day, fuck, I play for the Reds. It's the only thing that would make sense to me. And be like, okay, he's normal again.
Yep.
Shit, I play for a Kentucky team. Now I'm unhappy. Oh, I see a California looking dude. I'm going to slap the shit out of him because he says something I didn't like.
Yep.
If that dude was playing for the Mets, I question whether he would have slapped Peterson.
Probably not.
I think I'm on to something.
I think you are. Well, and also he probably, he looks at who else is on Jock Peterson's team. He's like, there's no threats on there. Nobody on that team particularly scares me.
Even if Buster didn't retire, like, does Buster Posey scare anybody?
His name's Buster Posey.
That could either be a name that instills no fright, or it could be a name of like an MMA fighter that everybody's terrified of.
It could be a very scary warning of the boy who first takes out your daughter. Better not Buster Posey.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like an
innocent
name,
I will hunt
right?
you down. I have a unique set of skills.
You got to do your Liam Neeson, your best.
I don't have a particularly good Liam Neeson. My Sean Connery is much better, but he doesn't have a unique set of skills. That's a hard one.
You got to do kind of like you got to have a little trace of Irish in there because he can't completely shed it, even if he's talking an American accent.
He has a unique set of skills.
Right, you can tell somebody's really trying to talk American because he really gets in there on some of those syllables.
He always has. He's very deliberate when he's speaking. Mm-hmm. With an American accent.
It makes me want another clip, but I don't have it. Last thing, let's get back into baseball here for a second before we get into a topic that's going to be way more fun. I'm not celebrating this. I just think whoever put this TikTok video together is maybe the most brilliant person.
What about it are you not celebrating? The drug use, the false accusations, the jury verdict.
Now I'm uncomfortable.
Just play the clip.
I didn't realize at the time, but I think he was using cocaine because it was like there was a jar of cocaine out on the table. I realize that sounds weird, but it was like an actual vintage jar of it.
I got a jar of dirt. I got a jar of dirt. And guess what's inside it?
You're never going to be able to watch that movie again. Not the same way.
Yeah, so we all know the whole America's fascination with this trial, which we always are with celebrity trials, right? Like the masses, Pete, not you and me. Like you and me, we're not watching this every day, like following every detail and everything on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. But, look, he won his case, and if we're going to go off fact, if we're going to only go off things that we know that were presented, like
she shit on his bed,
shit on his bed, and. He won his case. I mean, he won his case in front of a jury, no matter what you think, no matter what crowd you're from. This kind of shit happens where, look, it's not always what it seems. And so the court of public opinion, I'm not saying anybody owes anybody an apology because that doesn't happen in America. We don't do that. But
this is the closest that you come to an apology in the court of public opinion.
Yeah. And it won't.
And understand, this was a really high bar to clear. Like defamation of a public figure is incredibly hard to clear.
Yeah, it takes a hell of a lot of effort, hell of a lot of proof, which they had. And the other part is, the whole I don't know the truth or fact behind this. It's mostly social media rumor, but did Disney write this guy off once these accusations were made? Did they feed into the frenzy of, oh my God, so and so did something to so and so? We have to immediately default to, this side or the other.
Well, Disney says no. I think I heard that they released a statement within the last week or something like that, that the decision to not bring Johnny Depp back in Pirates of the Caribbean had nothing to do with it. But the timing of it was incredibly convenient. I think it was only 2 or 3 days after her article that Johnny was informed that he wasn't coming back.
Well, and it's just, that's the whole thing. And I think the only thing, Pete, I hope comes out of this, and it won't, I don't have high hopes for it, but, the whole innocent until proven guilty thing in the day of big time media and social media just doesn't exist, right? As soon as accusations are thrown one way, like everybody wants to default to the side that makes you look more ethical. And so, or you have higher morals, and that's what it is. And so if anything, you hope that little things like this that happen get us back to more sensible, like, let's hear the facts laid out. It goes to politics too. It stretches to everything. Let's hear the story. Let's hear the context, all of it. and then we can make a judgment. But we just don't like to do that. And I say we, and I'm talking about collectively all of us. We just don't tend to do that. We want to default to outrage. Some default to outrage because they honestly believe that. That's who they are. Others default to outrage to project themselves as being more ethical or standing on a higher moral ground when they're really not like that. And so it's hard to sift through all this bullshit. But
and unfortunately, we've been trained to by the social media companies, because they've found that we engage more with things that, not things that we like, but
right.
things that make us angry. And so if you're constantly being fed that, and you don't have the ability or the discretion to separate yourself from that, you're just feeding more into it yourself. And so, when something comes up that continues that narrative in your mind, all right, here we go.
Well, it makes me uncomfortable. All of it does. And I don't like being uncomfortable. You know what else sucks, Pete?
Buying a new car.
Buying a new car is not pleasant. And that's why you need Fifth Street Motors, located in Pacific, Missouri, that will help you find a vehicle you need no matter what brand. Fifth Street Motors, giving you the best price on a pre-owned vehicle that will fit your budget. Give Brandon or Dawn a call today at 573-259-1306 and tell them Team Arrivals Podcast sent you. Bucking the trend. I'm going to get fined for that. But we are Gateway City Sports right now. You guys got to start putting it out.
We are.
Don Glenn put a podcast out, though, this week, talking sports on the bleachers. He's doing stuff.
We get to add him to the closing role.
That's right. Don Glenn. Making it happen. John.
So Derek, it's going to be...
Derek did text me tonight, though.
It's going to be Don and Derek, right?
Don, Derek. Well, Derek King Sports Show.
Mm-hmm. And talking sports in the bleachers with Don
honestly,
Glenn.
guys, we love you all. We're giving you a hard time on purpose, but we love to do it.
Because you do better shows than we do, so, you got to punch up. That's what
you
we're
would
always
actually
told.
give more credibility to Gateway, but you guys won't get behind a goddamn mic, and I know you have the time. Mike's on. Turning 2 for 3. Come on. Yacker Jacks.
XFL, STL. And don't give me that. It's not season.
Hasn't been this season for like 3 years.
That's right.
Which is amazing they did podcasts over this whole time. I mean, if we were on strike for 3 years, Pete, we wouldn't be doing this shit anymore.
No, the show would be over.
Be bitter old men. You would look like Clint Eastwood already.
Even more bitter. Because we're already bitter old men. Although I have to say, I got a nice compliment the other night. I was out for drinks with the work wives. And one of them was like, "How old are you again?" And I said, "I'll be 49 in October." And she's like, "Really? I had you for 43." So,
Pete,
well, that was very.
You've got highway miles on you though. I think you've aged pretty well. Like you don't have a bunch of crow's feet. And, like if I was a single young 40s woman, I'd be all over you.
Are you listening, ladies? I might not be attending the baseball game by myself tomorrow.
You might be taken. You got to accelerate your efforts if you're out there listening.
That's right.
You can hit him up at the show at teamarivalspodcast.com.
And at TOR_Elliot. Elliot's just my nickname. Just go ahead, send all your hottest DMs to that Twitter
That's right.
address.
Pictures, whatever you got, send them to TOR_Elliot.
That's right. It won't cause any problems.
I hope his wife has his Twitter account on her phone.
Me too.
Brilliant.
And if she doesn't, we'll send her a link. All right, so our teams are playing. It's now 5-3, bottom of the 7th. Oh, Jason Hayward's up, so that's the end of the 7th.
I was going to ask you about that. Look, I haven't heard that guy's name for like 6 months.
So he was on IL.
I knew that.
For a little while. He just got called back up, and it's actually causing some consternation with Cubs fans because the Cubs are now at the point.
He's blocking young guys, right? Like, why play him, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's now, and it's by playing, right? It's not even his presence on the roster that's a problem. He's actually, this is the worst case scenario when you have an older player that we always talk about, but that never actually seems to materialize. You always talk about it being something that you worry about, but we've talked about it with Yachty, right? Oh, he's blocking the next pro. No, actually, he's not. Right, because nobody who comes up has been able to prove themselves.
Talking about,
but now, when the Cubs are in a roster crunch, right, their 40-man is full, and it's full of a lot of younger guys who they had to put on the 40-man because had they not been, they would have gotten the Padres would have grabbed them.
Sure,
right, and
they
so
would
you
be
had
my
to put
top
it on the 40. And now, and when the Cubs had a whole bunch of guys on the IL, all of a sudden you have to start calling these guys up. And now Jason Hayward comes back. And you have all these prospects where you're going to have to make some really rough decisions. Like this is the downside of a rebuild. If you get too many prospects, you got to start making some really tough decisions about who stays and who goes. Because today, Baseball America updated their prospect rankings, and the Cubs now have 4 in Baseball America's top 100. And if the trend continues, you're going to have a lot of them, but there are a whole lot of outfielders in the Cubs minor leagues.
Well, you got Happ.
And there are only so many spots.
You got Happ, right? You've got Hayward that are sitting there, and I get it, right? The front office made, regardless of when it wasn't on Hoyer, right? It was a Theo signing, but when you owe a guy that much, like you want to know until the very end, like, can I get anything out of this at all? And the Cardinals you've witnessed it for years, Pete. Like they won't let go, they won't concede that this is a bad signing till the bitter end when they have to release or just let somebody walk.
And I think it's complicated by the fact, and this is one of the few drawbacks that I've seen thus far in having David Ross as the Cubs manager.
Sure.
I guarantee you there is a loyalty to a former teammate that he won a World Series with.
Yeah.
And he's giving him a lot more rope than he would any other veteran.
And you saw the same thing
line.
with Matheny. You saw the same thing with Mike Schilt, who had been with so many of these young guys, kept running, like guys like Paul DeYoung out there when they're clearly struggling. And, you're not going to appease everybody. And if we go off Twitter, our opinion is going to be a little skewed. But yes, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, we all knew that. I think even back in 2016 when he signed the deal, like, okay, he had a pretty good year in 2015 with St. Louis. I think he batted .285. Thought you could get 3 or 4 years of that. Good signing.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen, and now you're dealing with the tail end. Owe him a lot of money. We got to squeeze every bit of value out of this we can. You can't trade him anywhere at this point.
No. But at some point, and it's
his final year, right?
Yeah, you got to think that at some point this year, because they're going to start. Look, they're clearly not going
Angels
anywhere.
did this with Albert last year. They said, you know what? By May, they were like, "This, we gotta cut bait here."
Yep, and I think that's got to happen because as they start trading away the guys who are useful pieces, and a lot of them are guys like Smiley and Miley if they get healthy.
Right.
Probably Schwindel and Wisdom will probably be dangled to see what they can get for them. Antonio Rivas, I could see being dangled, but that's just going to open up spots for prospects. And if you're going to do that, you can't have Jason Hayward languishing in the lineup and on the 40-man taking up that space. It's too valuable at that point. You have to just say, Jason,
DFA.
Thank you for your service. We really appreciate it. It's time to part ways, and we're going to take the hit. We're going to pay you that contract, but we're designating you for assignment. He'll definitely clear waivers, and then whoever wants to take a chance on him is more than welcome.
Yeah. I see that as a DFA at some point in July. Like, now's the time. If we're behind the Pirates in the standings, now's the time to, like, okay, well, you know what? Let the youth play. There's nothing to lose here. There's excitement that's generated from newness in the ballpark, new players.
Yep.
So, hey, yeah. I think
if you're trying to generate that kind of,
just take it.
If you're trying to generate that kind of excitement, and if you're trying to buy some goodwill from your fans and buy some patience from them because they don't want to watch another, complete teardown, you can't antagonize them by putting a guy who's hitting .205 in the lineup every day in right field.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to do that, at least make it somebody who is building up to being a good player rather than somebody who is on his way out of the league.
Right. Has a good glove, good arm, can't hit a lick.
But the Cubs have plenty of those guys who have good gloves and good arms in the minors who are just dying for a chance.
Yeah.
And you guys have gone through it in your outfield for the last couple of years. And look at how long it took for them to finally really realize their potential. Are you going to continue to put that off by a year if you're the Cubs front office because you feel some kind of strange loyalty to Jason Hayward's contract? And that's all it is. This has nothing to do with Jason Hayward. This is a contract decision. If he was making the league minimum, he'd be gone.
Yeah. No, absolutely is. And that's why it's hard to concede that, hey, this thing was a total failure. We have to DFA him in the final year of a huge deal. You know, we have to pay him like, what, $14 million in July, from July to the end of the year to not play for us. And sometimes that's a better decision. Like, okay, we can get equal or better production from somebody, a youthful person who just happens to show up at the ballpark.
And even if we don't get equal or better production, it's useful information for us moving forward.
Yeah.
Keeping Jason Hayward around provides nothing, provides no information, doesn't help you to make decisions moving forward into the future.
All right. So Jason Hayward talk has made me want to switch immediately out of baseball.
I agree. So I have to ask, because I know that you took time to enjoy the weekend.
Yeah.
But did you really take time to experience the weekend?
I did. My wife and kids didn't leave until this morning. So I watched the episode yesterday.
No. That's not what I'm asking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading that wrong.
What I'm asking is,
I thought this was the transition period. But transitions are hard.
But there's another transition before that transition.
I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. Go ahead.
You did. Ron, on Memorial Day weekend, did you feel the need for speed?
Oh, yes. Yes, we did. And we actually saw it. We saw it in theater.
Standing movie.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Entertaining. Yeah. Took me out of the doldrums of the everyday news and everything we see here. Even though the enemy was faceless and nameless. It was still, once in a while, it's fun to go. And we had a couple of instances of this last week, Pete. You're referencing the Top Gun Maverick movie, which I enjoyed a lot. In fact, we watched it with the two boys the night before, out on the big screen, the original. And then we watched Maverick the next day. And the boys loved the jet fighting scenes, like the action, all the stuff they did there that wasn't like just dialogue and feelings, because they're 11 and 9 years old. So they're exactly who I was when I saw it the first time in 1986. Airplanes, fighting, dogfighting. That's what the boys woke up to.
And going ballistic with Penny Benjamin.
What's that?
And going ballistic with Penny Benjamin.
Yes.
I have to say, and I mentioned this to my dad, and he didn't catch it. He's not obviously as much of a film nerd as I am. But when I mentioned it to him as we were walking out of the theater, because he had seen it, he actually saw the movie on Thursday. No, sorry, first thing Friday morning. And then he and I saw it, was it Sunday? No, it was Monday. He and I saw it on Monday. And I mentioned to him that Jennifer Connelly's character was pulled from a single line in the original movie. He was like, really? I said, yeah, right at the very beginning when they're getting dressed down. She's Penny Benjamin. He was like, oh, that's nice.
I did not.
So if you go back and watch it after the flyby, right, when they're getting screamed at, and one of the things that they've done is he talks about taking one admiral's daughter, and Goose looks at him and he says, Penny Benjamin. He nods his head.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
Jennifer Connelly is Penny Benjamin. She's the admiral's daughter that he took up in a plane.
See, that's the brilliant thing about all of this, right? Like, not only did he sit on this for a few years and say, no, this is a theater release. This is theatrical. Like, let's get out of this pandemic. Like, we want crowds here to enjoy this. And he bet on that, and he won. I think Tom Cruise, like being almost 60 years old, is the Tom Brady of action stars. He really is.
He is. And can we just, you know what? 2022. Well, I mean, it's partly 2020, but no, 2022, the year of 50 plus actors. We've got, my God, why can't I think of his name? Come on now, help me out. Boba Fett.
Tim Morrison, right? Yep.
Ming-Na Wen, Tom Cruise, and Jennifer Connelly. All 50 plus, all hitting it out of the ballpark.
Raked in the most money.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And let's just take a moment for a 53-year-old Jennifer Connelly.
My God.
Still smoking.
Oh,
my God.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Paul Bettany is he's doing well in his life right now.
Son of a bitch.
I know. Damn it. Well, that gives us a transition to Disney. So, Obi-Wan, we've got 3 episodes.
Well, let's make the clean break, though, Pete, for those that don't want to participate and,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you don't want to participate in the Obi-Wan, but you somehow stuck around for the pop culture of Top Gun, we'll take it. We're going to move you over a little bit at a time.
We'll keep you protected, and it's important to stay protected.
That's right. We will protect you.
Sometimes life throws you a curve, and that's why you need Allstate. The Wrigley Group has 2 locations in Festus and Arnold to serve you. They offer home, auto, boat, motorcycle, business, life insurance, investments, and so much more. They offer a customized approach to your unique situation that'll make sure you, your family, and property are properly protected. They offer great rates and savings. Give Sean and his team a call today at 636-764-6294. They can help you get an insurance quote right over the phone. We all have busy lives. You can email Sean at seanwiley@allstate.com. Talk to him about your coverage options. And remember, you're in good hands with Allstate. I would say great, but that's not the script. But you're in good hands. Really, really good hands.
But you know what?
Like, imagine being,
you're right.
Imagine
with
being in
Allstate,
Jennifer Connelly's hands. That's how well protected you are.
But you know what? I don't think that Sean would object. With Allstate, you are in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Wiley Group, you are in great hands.
You're in great hands. Big, meaty, great hands that will protect you.
It just got weird. Okay.
You think they'll drop us?
No.
All right.
So, Obi-Wan. I think I told you guys this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not.
Well, last week's episode was not released.
We were about halfway through episode 2. My dad and the boy and I.
Whatever our conversation was last week, nobody else has heard this.
That's true.
It's not bad.
My dad and the boy and I are watching the 2 episodes on Friday. Or no, I'm sorry, Saturday afternoon. We're watching the show. The boy turns to me about halfway through the second episode. He says, "This is way better than Boba Fett. I really like this." And on the way out, I had asked him, I said, "So are you looking forward to watching Kenobi?" He's like, "I don't know, Dad. I'm not enjoying Star Wars as much anymore." And I immediately wanted to slap him across the face for telling him not to bring that evil in here.
Like Tommy Pham.
That's right. Well, I resisted. And then he came around and he was very excited by it. And then we watched episode 3 last night. And he loved it again.
Yeah.
He's all in on Vader making his appearances. So I'm a little disappointed that we're not spending more time with Obi-Wan, that we're splitting the story so much, but I do like the contemplative pacing that we've had so far. And it's nice to see lightsabers again in a Star Wars story.
It is. I will tell you that the whole Leia aspect of this can be a little distracting. You're trying to connect the dots. Like, how did one know so much about the other? And, you serve my father, help me, Obi-Wan. kind of like if you read into episode 4, like you get the sense that she doesn't know him that well. She knows of him, but she doesn't know him.
Right.
And so the risk here is that she knows him too well.
Yeah.
And so then that line in episode 4 doesn't make as much sense.
Well, and also then, if they know each other well enough, how does his line at the end of Empire, when he's speaking with Yoda, make sense, where he says that boy was our last hope? No, there's another. Well, now, wouldn't he know that Leia's Force sensitive?
Yeah.
Especially after spending this much time with her here. So, yeah, they got a lot to explain away.
But I still love the fact that he is talking to his Padawan's daughter. Like he's interacting and he's calling her Leia. It's like, that's not how the Force works, explaining it to her. Some of that stuff is, you remind me every time I look at you, I see her mother, even though he was acting and acting in front of stormtroopers. So it was supposed to be his daughter, talking about the scene in episode 3.
But there was clearly a kernel of truth in there.
Right. There was. And so, Leia picked up on that and she's like, did you know my mother? Did you know my father? Like they're kind of on a razor's edge here, Pete, where they can reveal a little bit too much with him.
Yep.
Or too little. And so it's a hard act to balance. But I tell you what, Deborah Chow, the way Vader was introduced in this episode, which I didn't think they would do this in episode 3. I thought this would be a season or a short show run at the end, that the conflict would happen towards the back half of the show, but it happened in episode 3.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really sure what to feel about that, but I think they did it well enough where, he was discovered clearly in episode 2. And so Vader shows up in episode 3, which is earlier than I expected, maybe earlier than I wanted. But I think they did it pretty well in this episode where it didn't take away. I think Vader pulled back, knowing that he could have had Obi-Wan, even though that woman took that shot, blew up whatever she blew up, and caused chaos and smoke and fire and whatever else. But you see him kind of look back like, I could take over this situation. It wasn't like he was conceding to the moment, like, I lost him here. Like, something tells me in that moment, like, he was like, this isn't the time. This is not the time to take him down. He served some other purpose. I don't know what it is yet, so I'm going to let this ride out. I don't know. I get that feel from the scene. I don't know if I'm right or not. Just kind of in the moment, that's how I felt about it.
Yep. And we've talked about it. We texted back and forth about this a little bit, but and I was talking with a friend the other day. They're walking you indicated it, they're on a knife's edge as far as revealing too much, but they're also walking a really tight rope because they don't have a whole lot of time. When you look at the timeline of the Star Wars saga, they don't have a whole lot of time to play around with to explain something away, right? I mean, in 10 years, less than that, in 5 years from this, we have the events of Solo. And then not long after that, we have the events of Rebels. And then right after that is Rogue One and Star Wars, and the whole thing starts. So you've got basically 5 years. Not that I'm saying that they're looking to
they got like 5 to 8 years to make all of this make sense. You're right. You're absolutely right. And if you put the hierarchy down of who pays attention to what, like, most people are going to watch these live action things. Smaller amount of us are going to watch the animated stuff. Even smaller amount are going to read comics and books and whatever else, right? So, like, the whole canon thing really comes into question. Like, how important is it? I think the first most maybe egregious act was last week, episode 2, when the Inquisitor was the Grand Inquisitor that we know from Rebels was somewhat killed off. Maybe not in episode 2, but
certainly makes it seem like that he is, especially everything that happened in episode 3.
He was laying on his back with his eyes wide open, not breathing So,
yep. And in episode 3, Vader refers to the Grand Inquisitor slot being open and Reva stepping into it. The fifth brother, I think he is, his interest in having that slot, like,
and the fifth brother did show up in Rebels.
He did.
And
so
it seems the Grand.
It seems fairly clear that the spot is open, that he has been killed. So then,
but Filoni is the creative director, right? So how much of that applies to this? I don't know. Pete, my suspicion has been, and I could be completely wrong, whatever Inquisitor we saw, or Grand Inquisitor we saw that resembled the one from Rebels,
is not the same one.
Is not the one that ultimately ends up with the title. I think.
Boy, how stupid are people going to look after they lost their shit about how he doesn't look right, that his face is too fat, that his teeth are wrong and everything, and it ends up not being him?
I think it could be. I mean, look, it might be an outside shot, but I think that either that guy survives, like he's not really dead, or he's not the Grand we see in Rebels, right? Clearly, this timeline is before that, so that's where I'm plotting that's my headcanon.
Yep, and here's the danger in, if he is the same one, the danger in writing out that part of the canon of Rebels is that now, I mean, that's a string that do you really want to pull on it, because there are stories that come out of Rebels that are going to lead directly into Ahsoka.
Right.
And so now you're messing with that. And the word on the street is that Filoni is directing every episode of Ahsoka. That is very much his series.
And I would think, and I don't know for sure, but you would think, right, Pete, that he's got some kind of consultant or input on all these shows and series. Like I did this Rebels thing, like Filoni did that, right? Even though he maybe wasn't there, like in the chair or there for every call, but the overall story arc and line, like you have to think he's like,
especially since Ahsoka played such an important part of that storyline.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, he was there. I mean, we know that nothing happens with that character without Dave Filoni's involvement.
No, I wouldn't think so either. So anyway, but my thoughts on the episode were, I was surprised Vader showed up in this form this early in this season or limited series. But I was not disappointed at all. He is terrifying. He's more terrifying than he was in Rogue One. He's taking innocent people, choking them, dragging them along to try to draw out a Jedi. He knows the Jedi want to protect, and he's doing that for a reason. What
I also enjoyed about his introduction in this, and obviously Obi-Wan didn't see it, but still, that reinforcement of Obi-Wan's line from the very first movie.
More machine.
He's more machine than man.
Well, that was in Return of the Jedi. Right.
The assembly of Darth Vader, that there is very little of him that is actually a human anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, he's terrifying. He comes out of the dark. And the way they shot this was like, shit. I mean, I was impressed by Rogue One with Vader scenes. Mm-hmm. Even though it clearly is Hayden in the costume. Like they fixed his gait and said, Vader is a tall guy. He has a wide gait, menacing walk. And I think they hit that better than they did right at the end of Revenge of the Sith, where you could tell this is not the same dude. Right. But he's new in his body, so I can give that a pass. But I think they're getting this better. James Earl Jones did voice Vader. Now, it was helped with technology that made his voice sound younger, the same technology that made Mark Hamill's voice younger.
Yeah, and you can hear it if you go back and you listen to his voice in Rogue One
or Rebels.
His voice is so much deeper and fuller now,
and in Rebels too. He sounded much older, aged, but in this episode, he sounded like the Vader like we heard in Empire Strikes Back. Still not that same tone in the cheap version of A New Hope. Like we all know that voice sounded different, but way closer. I love this. This episode was great. I'm a little distracted by the whole Leia getting kidnapped thing again, but maybe it'll make sense. If there's one thing that could draw Obi-Wan off the planet, it would have to be Luke's sister. We've kind of all thought about that at one point. Like, what could get him out of there? That was his responsibility. That was his prime directive, was to protect this boy. His twin sister being in peril. Okay. This starts to make sense.
And it also makes sense because you make the calculation, right? His being there is a threat to Luke's safety, right? Just his being on the planet.
Right.
So then
if you get out of there,
he gets out of there and he knows that the Inquisitors are close and they're chasing him, that's going to draw them away from Luke.
But they're going to have to like tie those loops at the end. Like,
yes,
nobody would ever expect him to go back there again.
Right. He's going to have to fake his own death or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. All right, man. This show, I hope I just limited series thing when they advertised it, like, it depresses me a little bit because I want to see more of it. But if we have 3-4 more episodes, I don't know how long this goes, but I hope they tie it up nicely because Ewan McGregor's great in this character. Seeing him broken makes sense to all of us. Like, when you step away from something for 10 years and then you have to go back and face somebody who's not been inactive, who's been in tune with the Force, like, you're going to be rusty. That is why he ran from Vader so much. I know I've seen criticism come from it where he's got his lightsaber lit, but he runs. Well, shit. He hasn't used the Force for 10 years.
Right.
He's hiding from it.
Well, you saw what a struggle it was just for him to save Leia when she fell.
Yeah. And he evidently can't chase her on foot.
Right.
She overpowers him.
And you know what it is? This is almost a masterclass for Rian Johnson. See, if you wanted Luke to be a bitter Jedi, this is how you approach it. He has to have a backstory. You can't just drop it on us, right? And it makes sense. I mean, essentially, at the beginning of this series, Obi-Wan is in the same place that Luke was at the beginning of The Last Jedi. The difference is we knew why Obi-Wan was. He had his whole order had been slaughtered. He had failed his Padawan, right? He was in hiding, protecting another potential Force sensitive.
Shut himself off. Shut himself off for a way different reason than Luke did.
Correct, because he's hiding. Because he's afraid for his life and he's afraid for Luke's life.
I'd say he's probably afraid for who he's protecting's life more than his own, but it's necessary to shut himself off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's reasons for all of it. It all makes sense. And there was no sense made. But, and then getting back to Maverick, you can now make Top Gun 3 because you paid the right amount of service to the original characters. You honored them, you brought them back properly, and at the same time introduced a whole new cast. So now if you do Top Gun 3 and Tom Cruise does not appear, that's okay. You've made the transition.
Or he can do the Val Kilmer thing and just be an admiral, finally promoted and whatever, right? Yeah.
Right.
What a fun revisit to a franchise, though. I mean, it really was.
It really was. And they handled it beautifully. You're right. They brought back those characters, but they brought them back respectfully. And you now have another generation that if you decide you want to, you can move forward with Rooster and all of the other pilots.
Did you tear up at all at Iceman's funeral? Because I choked it back.
I started to when he got called into his office. Like knowing that was, I mean, yes, it's Val Kilmer acting, but still knowing that there was a lot of not acting in that scene.
Well, yeah,
that was rough
rough
to see.
Fighting throat cancer and everything else. So and this is years ago, by the way. This scene was probably filmed
2018.
Yeah, right. So that's a long time ago, and he's gotten past it. He's still around, but yeah, no, great movie, great series so far. I hope to see a lot more from it. I don't get the anger towards the actress who's.
I personally think that's probably all overblown.
I think
like everybody catches some amount of that, right? You can't be on social media and expect that you're not going to get blowback about something. Everybody has to deal with it. The fact that Disney had to jump in on it, I think made it worse than it needed to be.
Yeah, that might be right. I didn't think the acting was. I thought it was more the character. Like,
Yeah,
we don't understand it.
Yeah, the character's not well written. There's no depth to that
so
character
far
right now.
But in episode 3, they started to peel back the layers there. She's touching symbols on the wall. They're starting to get into her history, because she was clearly, I think, one of the Padawans at the beginning that was running from Order 66. So if they start giving it more nuance and meaning,
but we're already halfway through the series.
Yeah, they're running out of time.
You're running out of time. And that's why, and it's part of the reason why I'm really hoping that soon the focus shifts almost entirely to Obi-Wan. Like, this is Kenobi.
Yeah.
This is not Kenobi and Friends. There's a little bit, and you said it before, there's a little bit too much emphasis on Leia. There's a little bit too much emphasis on Reva. The focus needs to be Obi-Wan.
Like, we all wanted to see him struggle with being at the center of all the action, the universe, and now struggling with being detached and void. Right?
Right.
We all want to see what that would mentally do to you to, be the focal point of everything that's going on, to all of a sudden being like nothing to do with it, like hidden.
Right.
Like that torment, that torture. Like, yeah, some of us wanted to see that.
And to see also, like, one of the things I've been looking forward to is that moment when he does connect with Qui-Gon. Finally.
It's bound to happen. It's bound to happen when he's on his ass, ready to get lightsaber.
But we've only seen, in 3 episodes, we've only really seen one moment where he really seemed to be trying to reach out to Qui-Gon.
Obi-Wan, get your shit together. I taught you better than this. Balance.
Well, in the time that we've been here tonight, the Cubs have tacked on 2 more, and it's now 7-3 at the top of the 8th.
Fine.
So
we'll concede defeat.
Seems like now's as good a time as any.
And then Albert's gonna slap the shit out of the next Cub he sees in the next series. Gonna sit on all that anger.
I'll be there. I think I'll be at that next series. I was about to buy the tickets actually earlier today, but then had to get stuff organized. So.
All right, we got to walk out. It's time.
Yeah, we do. And I got to find the notes for it. Here you go. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review. Tell your friends to subscribe. We're available on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Be sure to check out the other Gateway City Sports Network podcasts, including, finally, Talking Sports in the Bleachers with Don Glenn and the Derek King Sports Show. Send us an email at the show at teamarivalspodcast.com. And remember, ladies, I am single. You can find Elliot on Twitter at TOR_Elliot, and you can find Ron at
TR_Ron 75.
It's too bad we weren't streaming. The look of panic on your face, like you didn't know I was going to throw to you. That was beautiful.
Took me a minute.
All right, buddy. It's been good.
All right, everyone.
Maybe Elliot will join us next week.
We'll be back same time, same place, maybe next week. It's up to us, not you. Bye, everyone. Love you.